It is 9:05. We are with members, and thank you, Tom, for joining us. Thank you, members, for joining us as well for this informative session this morning. We are pleased to have Tom with us today, who will be providing us an in-depth exploration of the following topics. We have cash and management, safety and security, customer service, and C-store merchandising. In the afternoon session, we also have cash control, loss of theft, shrink, category management, financial management. So without further delay, I will hand it over to Tom. Please don't hesitate to
got that
in your questions. And we will when the audit was received.
Ready to go? Ready to go. Okay, thank you. Welcome to Retail Management Operating for Success. This is our part of our keys to retail success training that we perform. And it works for small business, not just convenience stores, although I will focus a lot on the C-store industry, but it works for any small business, fast food, liquor store, small grocery store, because it's all kind of the same policy or idea. Again, my name is Tom Terrono. I live in the Kansas City area. I am a former employee of Amoco Oil Company. I used to own my own Amoco BP convenience stores and service stations. I've been out of the business since 2005, and I've been doing training like this since then. On the screen is my email that you can reach out to me, my phone number, and also our company website, tsmanagementservices.com. Write that down. There's a lot of information that we share on our website that's helpful in your business. And everything we provide is free. There is no charge for anything that we have on our website. Again, the information we're going to share today is relevant to our business today. I try to update this constantly to the changes in the industry, the changes to the economy, things that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Today, we're going to talk about cash control, theft, shrink, category management, and financial management. Okay, things we are going to talk about today. We're going to talk about shrink. And shrink is best defined as what should be in your store minus what is in your store. The difference is shrink. And shrink is only going to be as high or as bad as you, the owner or manager, will allow. Let me say that again. The shrink is only going to be as bad as you allow it to be. Shift your focus from your customers to your vendors and your employees. Shrink cannot be ignored. Profits are eaten up quickly by poor shrink controls. Damaged merchandise, storeroom area must be kept to a minimum to reduce shrink. In the fast food business, waste is shrink. Shrink is the loss of pure profit, comes off the bottom line. And stores don't come up short, the people do. Shrink control should be everybody's responsibility. Everybody should understand what shrink is in our business. And again, people come into these meetings all the time, and they're telling me, my major problem is shoplifting. And I'm here to say, in most cases, it's not shoplifting. What it is employee theft and vendor theft that you think and looks like in vendor theft, employee theft. Again, shift your focus from your vendors to your employees. Things we're going to talk about are the proper markup and margin, maintain healthy gross profit. Some cases, merchandise is being sold too cheap, maybe not high enough, and sometimes it's because you don't properly price your merchandise. And good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of that comes from bad judgment. That would define me in my years in the business. I made a lot of mistakes, but I was always trying to find the right mix and the right idea. And you do that, and you're going to make mistakes. And I'm always asking in these presentations, Tom, what can I do to improve my store? What can I do to improve my profitability? Give me one idea. There is no one idea. What there is a lot of small things that we're going to share today to make your different business successful. That's what we're going to share. And if you see a slide, that's important to you, take out your camera, take a picture of it. It might help you as to remember the presentation in that way. Okay, cash control, theft, and shrink. Are you a victim of the profit killers? Do you really know what the profit killers are? Everybody knows about Target. Everybody has been to a Target store. And for years, Target has said, we are a victim of organized theft in our store. And to a certain extent, that's true with this latest flash robbery and breaking in and stealing stuff. But Target has just come out and said, we've been wrong all these years. We think we now know employee theft is our number one problem that we're faced with. That's a major change. Checkouts. Okay, how often do you do a checkout at your store? Simply, you should do a checkout each time people come on duty or leave the shift. And there should be a balance, plus or minus, how that shift came out, so they understand it. Make it quick, make it fast. Try not to make it inconvenient for customers, because customers don't like to wait while you do this type of work. How about safe drops? Have you got a safe drop policy? Do you make safe drops? To me, 50s and 100s should be dropped right away. There's no need to keep large amounts of bills in the drawer to pay vendors. If you can't charge your vendor delivery or write a check for it, then you shouldn't keep money on hand to do that. I used to keep a certain amount of 1s, 5s, 10s, and 20s in the drawer, and I would have CSRs make a drop every 20 or 30 minutes, maybe longer. When you verify a safe drop the next day, is the money that you take out of the safe drop all jumbled up, all mixed up? Ask yourself, if it is, that tells you their registered drawer is probably jumbled up. The money experts tell you that if the drawer is unorganized, you're susceptible to theft. In my store, the cashiers always faced the bills, so the presidents faced the window. That was their way of thinking the money is organized in the drawer, not jumbled up. There's one idea that we as owners have that has caught more employee theft than all the other management tools put together. Any idea what that might be? Surprise checkout, cash audit. What I mean by this is if you check out at 3 o'clock, maybe 2:30 someday, do a quick checkout. You might find that the shift is over for that day. Why? Because the cashier was going to take money out before shift change. And you caught that before they could do that. So you're going to find there's extra money, maybe 5, 10, 20, 30, maybe even more. But that was the money your cashier was going to skim off before they left. And you caught them by doing that checkout early. Anybody do a cashier trend report, or maybe called a cashier analysis report? There are other tools to monitor cashier activity, but what we're trying to do is we are looking at cashiers and comparing them to each other. In other words, does one cashier have more overs and shorts, or maybe more coupons than anybody else? The question is why? That's something that you need to look for to figure out, understand. See that tip? Tip means to improve profit. To improve profit, start something little like a cashier trend report, looking for problems. Don't wait until your checkbook is out of money to find out that you have a problem. Start looking today. And I think once you start doing something like this, you'll find that it just creates questions for you on your cashiers. It's a way to measure sales goals, and it's a way to monitor the business when you're not there. And SOS stands for Save Our Store.
Hey, Tommy, what about monitoring for no sales?
Good point.
Yeah.
Most people tell us that no sales are a way of the cashier to open the drawer to steal money. In most cases, when you press no sale, a receipt pops out. I used to make my cashiers initial that. It doesn't stop it, but it slows it down. I just want them to justify why they open the drawer. And typically, if you look at that report today, you might see 40 or 50 no sales at your business. When in fact, maybe you could just reduce it down to 5 or 10. Again, by just slowing the process down, you're attempting to eliminate some of that theft. So, but here's a sample of what a cashier trend report could look like. Okay. And I suggest you vary the items. Try it for 30 days. Switch the items you're looking at. Never tell the cashiers what you're doing. I never used to tell them that. I used to just ask questions, and they'd look at me like, "Where'd you come up with that from?" And it was just, I just smile and say, I'm just asking a question." I sometimes knew the answer, but I wanted to see what they were telling me. Why? Kind of gave me a little insight into their honesty.
Tom, why do
Okay.
you have cartons on that list?
Say it again, Irfan?
Why do we have cigarette cartons listed over there?
That was a trick that one owner told me personally. He went into a store at 6 o'clock one morning, and he noticed that there was a bunch of money on the side of the counter. And he asked the cashier what that was. And that was the time, I think cigarettes were $3 a pack and $25 a carton. So what the cashier was doing was waiting till the end of the shift and would ring up, instead of 20 packs, would ring up 2 cartons of cigarettes being sold and put the extra money in their pocket. And the cashier looked at him and said, "What's your problem?" And he said, but you're not recording the sales properly. He said, "Well, you wanted $25 a carton. I gave you that." He was keeping $5 extra for himself. So by doing a cashier analysis on carton sales, you might start to see why when a certain person works on shifts, their cigarette carton sales are high or low. It just gives you something else to question. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Okay, here's something else that you might think about. Suppose one day you notice several 6-packs of beer are missing from your cooler. Check your registered tapes and maybe your journal tapes. You didn't sell any. Journal tape reviewing, I think, should be routine. In the old days, we had a paper journal. And I think today your journal is electronic. And I would suggest maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, you or somebody that you trust should go through that. And what you're going to find is just something else to question. And I never liked the journal tape because it kind of put me to sleep. I couldn't do that long enough. I gave it to my wife and I said, "Here, go through this journal tape, see what you see." And it would be funny to see different things like no sales. Maybe they would do a interim report, interim checkout. And there was never a reason for a cashier to do an interim report. But all of a sudden you found that they were doing that by going through the journal tape, because all this stuff prints out. So again, it's just good common sense to start going through the journal. What's 1-cent transactions? Well, 1-cent transactions are no sales. I told you not to do no sales, but now I catch you doing 1-cent transactions. Okay, you're going to find that on the journal tape. There's something called cross-ringing. How does it work? Again, we're being proactive. We're looking for problems before they become a major nightmare for us. For example, say you sell beer for $6.99 a 6-pack. Your cashier may ring up 99-cent grocery, $6 lottery. And they may take $6 out and actually play the lottery with your money. How about the multiple cartons of cigarettes? A lot of us don't sell a lot of cartons at our store. I know some stores that don't allow cartons to be sold on a credit card or check. A lot of times if you do that, That's where you have a fraudulent sale take place. Just be careful if that's the situation for you. Again, who orders cigarettes at your store? They tell us the average price is about $63 a carton in this country. The experts tell us about 125 SKUs, which are stock keeping units, which are different brands, will cover 90 to 95% of the business. 300 plus is going to cover 99%. If you stocked one carton of each, you're looking at a difference of over $11,000. I think you need to be very careful as to who orders new cigarettes at your store. And when I do consulting and I walk into a store for the first time and meet with the owner and we talk about the issues they're dealing with, first thing I do is say, get out your cigarette order book. Tell me how many lines are in that cigarette order book. And I've had as many as 425 different brands of cigarettes, and they were all over the store. They were just literally all over. You can't control that. You can't control that many. We can't be everything to everybody in our business. $11,000 difference in just stocking between 125 and 300. That's a lot. You should be counting cigarettes at the end of every shift. Maybe if you want, start out with counting them once a day. I think you'll find out you're going to slow cigarette theft down. You're not going to stop it, but you're going to slow it down. Here's a sheet that I used to use at my store. Cashier coming on duty counts it. Cashier going off duty verifies the count. And you're making them justify the cigarettes that are gone.
So Tom, what is the average time taken during the shift change to count the cigarette packs?
Can
you repeat that, Mr. Irfan?
Sure. What's the average time taken during the shift for the
checkout time at my store was about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Remember, I said earlier that people that want to control shrink will spend a little more money to do that. That was what I did. I felt it was money better spent by paying them 15 minutes overtime for each shift to do a checkout, and yet I was helping reduce shrink. I still thought I was money ahead.
Makes sense.
Okay. Lottery tickets, same thing. You have to account for all the lottery tickets for each shift. I do not allow my employees to play lottery at my store. If you want to play lottery, go somewhere else to buy your tickets. Don't buy it here. And who activates new tickets? Once you activate a packet, you're responsible for that. If it gets stolen, you're going to pay that, what, $300 a pack? And the boxes should be locked up. And when I had my stores in Kansas, we had a problem with old scratch-off tickets that could be redeemed again sometimes. So I always took them home with a little plastic bag about once a week, threw them in my trash at home. That way I kept them out of the business. But make sure you're locking up your boxes. Only managers should have a key to activate new packets and put new tickets in the box. Make sure your online sales, your Mega and your Powerball match your end of shift sales. Same way with money orders. If you've got a money order machine, compare your shift checkout with your register checkout. Make sure it balances. And I still suggest you ought to be cash for lottery and lotto tickets. Some people I know might do okay for debit cards. That's fine, but don't be taking credit cards. That's going to eat up the little margin you get on lottery tickets. Here's a lottery checkout. Again, my store only had 8 boxes, but I would had the starting number and the ending number. When a cashier comes on duty, they verify the ending number. And what's missing is sold. Too many lottery owners, too many retailers don't get serious about lottery and money order theft till after a major theft occurs. I had a friend that had 2 stores, one on the Kansas side, one on the Missouri side in Kansas City. And his wife said one day, you know, John, I think you need to go talk to the manager at the Missouri store. I think there's a lottery problem. He said, okay, I'll go talk to her. Walked in the door, sat down with the manager, and he said, my wife said there's a lottery problem. And can you help me out? She dropped to the floor and started crying. Yeah, I've got a problem. I apologize. I'll pay it back. He was shocked that so easily she was able to talk about this. Turned out he lost $30,000. $30,000 in missing lottery tickets. Now, he ought to be ashamed of himself for letting this go on as long as it did. But he'll never make $30,000 in lottery. I don't care how long he's in business. Here's what employees steal. I've had people ask me many times in the classes that I teach, if they stole as much from my store as you say they will, they'll need a truck backed up to the front door to load it up. And I say, wait a minute, they're not stealing your merchandise, they're stealing your money. In most cases, customers have paid for the merchandise and they're taking the money out. One idea is excessive no sales, not ringing up sales. Again, we talked about 1-cent transactions. Safe drop void. Opens the drawer. You press safe drop, the drawer opens, void it out. Again, that's something that you might see as you go through the journal tape. Or the cashier is waiting for the money before they ring up the sale or they quote the price. And cigarettes and fountain drinks should never be even dollars. I remember to this day when I used to change cigarette prices at the store, the cashiers would always say, Mr. T, would you please make the cigarette prices so I don't have to make change or deal with pennies? And I used to say, sorry, it's just the way it worked out. That's why I was doing it. I wanted that drawer to open to make change. Or working from an open drawer. Some registers could be programmed to do that, or blocking the register display where customers can't see it. Paperclip, calculator, cell phone, toothpicks, buttons, matches, anything. That's a marker. That's an indicator. That's a method of counting that cashiers are doing to track the money they're going to steal from you. If you've got a cashier that does this, and maybe only 1 or 2 do and nobody else does, you have to ask yourself, why do they do that? Walk up to the register one day, scoop all that stuff up, put it in your pocket. What you've just done is you've messed up their counting. Or loose coins in the tray or on the counter. There's always that extra compartment on the register coin tray. And why does some cashiers put a mixture of quarters, nickels, dimes, and pennies in that? Nobody else does. I don't when I'm a cashier. Or the cashier that's always over or short. Inventory shortages actually are cash shortages. Again, these are all signs of stealing. Void followed by a no sale. Cashier made a transaction with your customer, voided out the transaction, opened the drawer with no sale, and took the money out. Again, if you went through the journal, you would see possibly a void. Shortly thereafter, a no sale took place. Excessive readings, again, we used to call it X readings or Z readings or interim reports. Cashiers are not authorized to do interim reports. Or maybe you have a change in the number of sales or the number of customers per shift or the average ticket price. All these things are something that you're looking at on the cashier trend report to try to spot something that doesn't make sense to you. When it doesn't make sense to you, stop and ask. Again, these are signs of stealing. These are counting methods that employees use. There's probably a lot more, but This is a few of the simple ones. Watch the hands. If you've got a video camera and you see a hand, maybe that grip like that, there could be something in their hand they're trying to hide. I'm not saying all the time, but it makes you question it. More ways employees can steal. Suspend sales. I never did like that because my people got confused by that. Or the cashier that's always eating and drinking and you never see them seem to pay for it. Penny cup on the counter. I know our people like that because it kind of makes the sales easier. Take that penny out. Most of the cases it's dirty. Get rid of it. The money experts will tell you that's a way to help steal money out of the drawer by not having to open the drawer to make change. Or carrying out trash before lunch or end of shift. Maybe their car is parked by the dumpster. I think you ought to have clear plastic trash bags. And trash is always carried out by the next shift. If you close at midnight, I think you should leave your trash inside the store in a bag and let the next shift take it out. Why? They could possibly throw out a carton of cigarettes or a case of beer, put it out in the dumpster, and after the store closes or end of shift, they'll come out and take it out of the trash. Or the cashier never takes a break. They're always there. We don't have drive-offs anymore, but in the old days when we had drive-offs, half of them were false. Or family and friends hanging around, excessive amount of damaged merchandise. How come one cashier seems to have a lot of damaged product that they have to throw away? Or maybe you pop extra popcorn or cook hot dogs and you tell your cashiers, well, whatever you have at the end of the day, you can take home. Well, how do you know they aren't going to make extra before they take it home? Anything that's not sold doesn't get thrown away. It's left for you to see. So you'll understand how much waste there is going on in the store. Maybe their purse or their coat or backpack doesn't belong in the work area. Maybe you should have a locked file cabinet or a locker in the back where they can put their pocketbook or purse or backpack. Some people I have seen left the drawer key in. Well, you never have a dough sale with the key in there. Maybe they have a bar code stuck on their hand and they're using that to ring up false sales and taking extra money out. I show a video that I can't show right now where a cashier is actually putting money in her back pocket during the transactions. And it's scary because most of our cashiers know we have cameras in our stores, but they still do it anyway because they don't think they'll get caught. The reward is worth the risk. Prevent employee theft, be proactive, look for it before you have a problem. Most employees are honest. It's up to us to keep them that way. Don't underestimate employees. Don't let them know what you know. And if you suspect a cashier from doing something, move them to a different shift, because what you'll find is that problem will go with them. And again, surprise audits, we'll find a lot of things out that you didn't understand. You didn't know what was going on. Banks do it. And if you can prove employee theft, I think this is good deterrent for your other employees to understand, wow, he's serious about employee theft. And I still think from time to time, add a 10 or a 20 to your drawer. Why? I want to make sure they're coming out over for that day. And at my store, the cashiers used to shake their head and say, Tom's been playing in the drawer again today. Okay, I'm guilty.
How often did you find where you put the cash and then it wouldn't come out over?
After a while, not very often, but I did find it in the beginning because they knew I was doing it. Beverly gas station managers facing indictment. A gas station manager is facing possible indictment after an audit revealed he stole in excess of $35,000 from the business. We estimate he was taking between $500 and $1,000 a week. And he had a good reason. His ex-wife was sick. He had car problems, but he was also spending that money on personal items. Most people start out stealing a little bit of money with the intention of paying it back. Trouble is, they got away with it, and it just keeps growing and growing. If you have a major financial crisis in your personal life, and in our business, we have a lot of cash, it's tempting. And again, people start out with small amounts. They look around. I didn't get caught. I'm going to do more.
And if I can share a story, Tom, in San Diego, I had a store manager that I showed up to her store to do a cash audit. And at the time we had a surprise cash audit that you have to do where you count the drawer, you drop everything, and you also count lottery, et cetera, et cetera. Long story short, she came up in her safe fund. She came in her petty cash. She came up short $300. So I was making the note and whatnot, and then the manager was not at the store when I showed up, but the cashier was. So when the manager showed up, she confessed that she took the money because she needed to pay for her vehicle tax for her license plate. But she was going to pay it back, and she was very remorseful. But it was,
and she believed it.
Oh, she believed it and whatnot. But unfortunately, I lost the manager that day. But that was her intent. She was totally going to repay it, and that I never had any issues with her. But
first time she ever did it too, right?
Correct.
First time.
Yeah, never done that before.
Never did that before. I mean, clergy steal from churches. School teachers steal from PTA funds. People will do it when they have a need. It's up to us to be watching, be aware of the potential that could happen, because we have all that cash going on. When you add up all the small stuff, suppose your cashier helps himself to a pack of cigarettes, a candy bar, and a fountain drink every for a week, for a year. That's about $2,000 in sales, 30% gross margin. That's $683 of your gross profit that you didn't get. And now you got to get the money out of your pocket to put it back on the shelf to sell it again. That's $2,200 that should have been in your register. And now you got 2 or 3 people doing it, maybe 4 or 5. Used to be a nickel and dime business. It's gotten to be a lot more than that. But we're not talking nickels and dimes anymore. We're talking real money.
Hey, John.
Yes.
So I've got a question, and I've noticed this with a lot of our members as we're visiting stores. Like if I'm in the field, and members do it out of the goodness of their hearts, and it's an awesome thing that where they always, hey, you want something to drink, grab something from the cooler.
Cup of coffee.
Well, not even that, but if you want anything from the cooler, from the cobalt, soft drink or whatever.
Help yourself.
Exactly. I always refuse, and because I always see it as you're sending the message to your employees that it's okay to give out inventory.
I'll take it, but I want you to go pay for it first.
Yes. So, and that's one of the things that I've noticed with our members, that it's awesome, you want to be gracious and whatnot, but at the same time, you're sending the wrong message to your employees.
I tell them, sure, I'll take it, but I want you to go pay for it first. Because if the cashiers see you do that, well, you're not going to miss that bottle of water. Why would you miss one if I take it?
Or give it.
Or give it away.
Yeah.
Give it away to my friends. Good point. Do you allow employee cash advances? And I know most everybody tells me no. And I respect that. I understand that. But here we got people that work paycheck to paycheck. And most of them are good-hearted, and they try and they help us out. But maybe they need a pair of tires for their car. Maybe they've got to pay a down payment on a new apartment. Would you loan them the money? In my case, I loaned the money out of my pocket. And I did that because and these were good people I tried to help. I wanted to keep them, but I had to help them out. And I took the money out of my pocket and I said, here's the money you need, the $200, $300. You get the money, you pay me back. We don't take it out of your check. We don't deduct your payroll. If I take it out of the register, that's monopoly money to most people. You and I, that's our livelihood. So I just felt that was better. I didn't do that in every case, but if I had a good person I wanted to keep, I tried to help them out. I know a lot of owners that make employees pay for cash shortages, and I understand that. but all you're doing is opening it up for them to steal somewhere else to make it back. And if you've got employees that have cash shortages or theft in the store, that's a management problem you need to resolve instead of taking the money out of their check. Because all they're going to do is you take it from them, they're going to take more from you, and it's never going to end. Vendor delivery theft warning signs. Not all vendors are dishonest. Oh, really? Delivery man makes an honest mistake. How can you prosecute him for making, he just added wrong, or he forgot a case of soda. And if you lose a 5-gallon BIB, it's not 80 or 90 bucks that you lost. You lost 220-ounce drinks because that's what you bought the BIB for. And how many times have I remember counting in the Coke with the Pepsi guy. He lays the order down on the floor, and I'm looking and I'm missing a 5-gallon Diet BIB. Oh yeah, I'm out. I got to write you a credit. Now we both know if I didn't ask him for that credit, I wouldn't have got that. But that vendor, that driver, was stealing that 80 or 90 bucks from me.
And the one thing, Tom, I noticed in both when I own stores or working for Texaco is I never run into a vendor that made a mistake in my favor.
Nope.
Where, oops, I'm sorry, man, there's 5, 6, anything extra. It was always.
Or I carried the wrong number when I added up the ticket.
Never.
Yeah. And again, you can't accuse him of stealing when he added up wrong. I'm sorry, it was a math error. No, it wasn't. The helpers in the store, maybe not with the driver. You got to keep an eye on them. The driver gives out samples, becomes friendly. Let me tell you, delivery people do not have samples on the truck. They have a certain amount when the truck goes out, and they have to come back with money or merchandise. If you're trying to find a new coffee vendor, for example, a salesman will come out and say, here's different kinds of coffee, try it, whichever one you like, let me know, we'll do business. That's a salesman, that's not a delivery. The delivery guy, if he's giving you samples or your cashier samples, he's stealing from somebody else. I won't say which company, but a major beverage salesman came into my store one day and he said, answer me a question. And he said, how come we have drivers at the warehouse that are selling extra product in the parking lot to employees? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, they got a case of 24 bottles. They're selling for $5. They said it was extra on the truck. And I looked at him and I said, that wasn't extra. He stole that case from me. And now he's in the parking lot trying to get rid of it to other employees for $5. How can you tell which one's to trust? You can't. You treat them all the same. Or that maybe you've got a CSR that must check in a vendor. Oh, I know him. I haven't seen him in a while. Let me go check him in. Step up and do it. You might find that the order was short that day. They were going to split the difference in what they stole. Do you ever have vendors count by threes? I'll always remember this to my dying day. Used to have a hostess driver walk in with a rack product in the front, and he would count 3, 6, 9, 12, 18, 27, 33, 36, and the cashier would go, pay me. Now, I went to school in New York. They taught me how to count by ones. I had to go to college to learn how to count by twos. I never learned how to count by threes. It's not natural. They know that, and they know you don't know that. If you bring merchandise in, put the tray down. I'm going to count it the old-fashioned ones, twos ways.
Hey, Tom.
Yes.
So why is it an issue? Just to give you an example with Frito-Lay, this used to happen. I would see it in stores where the Frito-Lay rep brings in a bunch of samples. He calls them samples for
Right.
the cashiers.
Right.
Oh, here. What was the purpose of that?
To let your guard down. He's a good guy. Trust me.
It's all good. Friend,
I'm gonna bring a case in. Trust me, there's 30 in that case. Maybe there isn't. And why does the vendor count the money when you pay him? Don't you trust me? I count, you count, everybody's happy. Or as I call it, the rolling count. You count as he brings in a two-wheeler. Oh, there's 10 more on here. Well, in between, he might switch to a smaller two-wheeler. Don't do any counting until the order is delivered and stacked on the floor. Stacked on the floor, then you count it. I'd give him a copy of my store's check-in policy. On our website, we have what's called a vendor check-in policy, and it tells them where the trucks are to be parked, when deliveries are expected, who checks them in. Customer service is number one. In other words, if my cashier is busy, we're taking care of customers first. You're getting counted second. How do we correct mistakes? And this is where the driver has one, the salesman has one, and you have another. That's my vendor check-in policy. Looks something like this. Again, you can find it on our website. Maybe he carries out product that's stuck in between boxes. There's nothing wrong with you as the owner walking over and making sure nothing fell in there, like a magazine or a package of candy bars, something like that. Maybe he doesn't open up the cases like the Frito driver said, oh, there's 30 and he take my word for it. Or you might scan the sheet, not the actual product. He might bring in fresh stuff, stack it on the floor, and slide off merchandise off the shelf, and you're going to buy it twice. Always pick a neutral spot. If your Frito is here, stop your, do your order checking over here. Keep them away from the area. And don't be rushed to do a check-in. I'm a little slow. I count by the ones, but I'll get it counted. And don't count off the product and let him check it off. You count it, you check the invoice, and don't give it to the driver and say, oh, go to the cashier, he'll pay you. You don't know, but he could switch invoices and that cashier is paying for a higher price ticket. Newspaper deliveries, they were always trouble to count, but you had to be careful how you track your newspapers. Occasionally open up a full box. Used to be the juice would come in a cardboard box. Once in a while, just check, make sure there's the right number in there. You might find that the driver slipped one or two out of the bottom. If you've got a video system, use it. Spot check. I used to always make sure my cashiers attached a no sale receipt to my delivery ticket. That gave me date and time. I could go back on my camera system and I could look at that time of day to see if the cashier actually went over and counted. I did a meeting several years ago up in Indiana, and I did it for a company that brought all their managers in. There were about 30 in the store. And every time I went through this, there was a manager, a young kid named Adam, and he kept saying, I found that, I saw that, I've seen that. And people started snickering and laughing. And I said, wait a minute. Don't be laughing at Adam. Adam caught these guys. You didn't. Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that. Okay. One last item. Catch the milk guy before he goes in the cooler. You should count him before he steps in, because once he goes in the cooler, it's too late. There's a vendor log. Use it to document who your vendors are, when they're coming into the store. It might also remind you who's not been in the store that week. And if you have a COD or charge basis, in other words, if you're on a charge with a vendor, the driver can't come in and say, oh, I want to get paid today. We don't do that. Again, to improve profit, I suggest you put a vendor log at your store. Here's a vendor schedule. Remind your staff when they're coming to the store and who. What would your cashier do at your store if a sandwich company came in at night and said, I'm here to take the microwave in for service. I'm going to bring it back tomorrow. Would your cashier let them? And I've had people say, well, some would, but some would call me. And I used to say, I didn't want those kind of phone calls at night. I don't want you calling me or a manager. If it's not on the vendor schedule, it doesn't take place. Don't call me on that. And if the beer driver offers to sell you Heinekens for the price of PBR, tell them no thanks. Because what he did was he stole that from the stop before, and he's trying to sell it to you at a discount, and he's going to keep the money. That's what he's doing. Here's a typical invoice that many of us have had in our store. See the check marks right there? That tells me that somebody verified line by line on the items when they came in. What about this? Did somebody check that order in? Maybe, but if I had to guess, I'd say no. Because you never find those items from top to bottom. You're always jumping up and down, trying to count. Without a check mark, you'll never find it. Again, policy at your store is, I want to see check marks when you check in the orders. And again, it doesn't take a lot. Once in a while, go back to your camera to actually look to see, was your cashier counting in the order? Or did they take the driver's word for it? Sales needed to cover theft. I like this example because it kind of opens people's eyes as to theft. And if you're making a 5% net on your money and you lose a dollar bill, and again, if I lost a dollar bill, it's gone forever. I never make it up. But if I were to make up that difference, it would take me $20 in new business to make up for that. If I lost a pack of cigarettes, it cost me $6.95. It'd take me $139 in new business to cover that. Or a 12-pack of beer, $279 in new business to make up for one 12-pack. That's tough. We're in a tough business. We got to watch our nickels and pennies every day. Summary of theft: 5% are totally honest. They will steal. 10% are basically honest. 85% will steal under some circumstance. I always said, if I got 10 employees, 2 will steal, 2 will not. The 6 in between go either way. They go either way based on need, justification, and opportunity. I need it, you got it, and you're probably not going to catch me at it. Who steals? 1 to 2% robbery burglars, 2 to 5 shoplifters, 20-25% vendor theft, 70 to 75% your people that you hired and you work side by side with every day. How to prevent stealing: create risk factors, view security tapes, let them know you know, monitor trend sheets, monitor changes in the business. And again, trust but verify. I believe my staff, I trust them fully, but I'm going to double check on them, and they know it. Inventory and cash control must. Don't let employees compare or change receipts at shift change. Drop the cash, complete checkout. Again, trust but verify. Make random shift checkouts. Do spot checks, cash audits. Select the right employee. I know that sounds easy. Arrange shelving to avoid blind spots. Excuse me. Keep high shrink item near the register. Price all merchandise. And keep the shelves low in the store. Don't work out of an open drawer. Keep the bills in the register neat and faced. And all sales must be recorded. Okay, we talked a lot about shrink. What's included in shrink? Shrink is basically low gross profit, not staying aware of price changes. As your price goes up and you don't change your retail, it's going to add to your shrink. It's going to add to your low gross profit. Not maintaining perpetual inventory. It's a trick. It's a math that you can use to track your inventory a little more accurately. Incorrect markup. I've had people tell me, in order to get a 30% markup, I multiply it times 1.3. 1.3 will get you a 23% gross profit. 1.43 is actually what you need for 30%. They're using the wrong math. They'll never get there at that rate. vendor theft, employee theft, friends of employees grazing. If you've got employee friends hanging around till they get off work, they're liable to take stuff off the shelf and eat it or drink it. And they say basically employee theft starts with lottery tickets, cigarettes, cash, and beer.
One more point I need to raise up within the employee theft thing. I've noticed I was working as an employee at the gas station, and I noticed one of the employee was paying out, how to do the payout. So he had like a guy outside, he paid him like $20 to pay out to clean the gas station. But what he did was that he paid out $30 and gave him the guy $20 and wrote it on the slip that it's for the cleaning. And he put it $10 in pocket.
Right.
So these things happens too for the employee theft terror. I just wanted to make
So where's the invoice for the $30 payout?
He just pay out the random.
Right, yeah.
And he just signed it up that I pay you $30.
Yeah,
So,
I want to see something to prove
Yes.
why you paid that. And nothing is paid out. It's like somebody said, oh, I came to paint the curbs at your store. I didn't tell you to pay out $30 to paint the curbs. Nobody does anything until I've told you on the vendor schedule that there'll be somebody out to paint the curbs and you'll pay them X amount of money. Good point. Okay, shoplifting. Yeah, it does. It's a factor. Discounts and specials not tracked. Owner grazing. That's you. That's you walking into the store, taking a pack of cigarettes, taking a cup of coffee, taking a soda out of the cooler and drinking it and not paying for it. Maybe putting gas in your car and not paying for it. Or worse, charging it on that button on the register everybody knows is phony. Family grazing, that's your kids, your family. If you allow your family to come into the store and take merchandise out, shame on you. Your kids are as good as a customer, good as anybody else. If you need ice at your house and you send your kids up to the store to get a couple of bags of ice, have them pay for it. That sets the mindset at everybody in your store that, wow, nobody here is special. Yes.
Just to give you an example of a situation I ran into at the prior, I used to work for a job.
In your earlier life.
In my earlier life, yeah. So once again, I show up at one of the stores and I do a cash audit. And surprisingly, the store came up short a few $100s. In this case, it turned out that the culprit was the company owner's son.
Right.
So that was a really difficult situation because he'd come in and, he grabbed the money and whatnot, and he didn't leave any notes or whatnot, which potentially could have gotten somebody else in trouble. And when I brought it up to my boss, which was his father, it created a really bad situation, but it could have been avoided. That's fine. It's their company, it's their money, but document it.
Right.
Do something, not just grab it and potentially get somebody fired,
What's good for you is good for me.
Exactly.
And that's what everybody thinks. So again, we as owners and our family, we have to do what we want our staff to do. Or again, cash shortages, inventory shortages, counterfeit money, credit card chargebacks, NSF checks. All these things go into your shrink number. Okay, grab a sheet of paper. I hope you have one handy. And we're gonna write down a couple of things that we've just talked about for the last hour. And here's a sheet that I put together, but I know you don't have one. But maybe one of the idea might be use a cashier trend report. Or another one could be sure your vendors are being checked in. Maybe you've got some others that you've thought about, but just take a moment and write down a couple of things that you want to make sure you do at your store after today. And while I'm thinking about it, I did a presentation in a small town, and I checked in. I was going to check in at the office for this supplier, and I had to stop and use the restroom on the way. I was kind of early. So I pulled into one of their company stores, and I parked right by the ice chest, and I noticed an ice truck had just pulled up. And he opened the back door and he started throwing bags of ice into the chest. Went in to use the restroom, came back out, and I noticed he was finished, walked in with his receipt, and got paid by the cashier. So I was at the meeting and we were talking, and I said, "Oh, how good are you about checking in vendors?" "Oh, we're very strict. We make sure all our vendors get counted in." And I said, "Really?" I told them about the example with the ice chest, and they looked like they had a shocked look on their face, like they never thought about that. But how many bags did that driver charge them for? 100, 200? What did they deliver? 50? Nobody really knows. And then I want you to put down a start date. And maybe the start date could be tomorrow or next week. And if you put down first chance I get, everybody knows you're not going to get to it. But be honest, try to put down a date that you think you'll start something. Okay. Let's move on to category management. Basically, what category management is, categories of departments like cigarettes, gasoline, soda, those are categories. We're trying to manage each category to make sure it's contributing to the bottom line. Again, we maintain each department in our store as a profit center. We record inventory, we record sales and merchandise received by department. I can't tell you how many financial statements I've looked at, gas and other. And the expenses are payroll and other. And I basically have to tell people, I can't help you. I can't help you manage your business unless you've got some information that we can work with. Be sure when you bring in a new category or department to your store, it's profitable. If you're going to add, let's say, coffee, a car wash, excuse me, make sure the car wash is profitable while you're there. Who's our customer? Typically, we figure it's blue collar, 25 to 44 years old, maybe different backgrounds. They want to fuel up fast, get back on the road. They shop for themselves and choose the products that they want. They want to be in and out fast, usually 2 or 3 minutes. They want to shop for beverages first and then choose food. I think if you watch, you'll see people do that, whether it be a fountain drink or a can or bottle drink. We figure they make about 87 trips to our store a year and about $8 a visit. That could be a little higher based on today's inflation price. That's about almost twice a week. They're willing to pay more for brands that they crave, brands that they like. They want a quick fuel fix that provides energy and fuel, get back on the road. Health often takes the back seat. Is it changing? I think people do that. I do that. I cheat when I travel because I have some things I don't generally have when I'm home. They prefer products that are well organized and look neat on the shelf. It appeals to their eyes when they walk in. They buy products that may not be available at home. They're not allowed to eat that at home. Here's a traffic pattern that some people have that they have at most stores. There might be a certain traffic pattern that your customers follow in the morning, maybe people that come in for drinks during the day, or maybe lunch at noontime. The red area is high traffic area, but you might think about this as you lay out your store, because a lot of times in our stores, we start out with a certain size store and we keep adding things to it, whether it be coolers or shelves or displays or racks, and maybe we really haven't got it organized. I had people at a class one day and they tell me, how do I convince stupid people, and this is the word you used, how do I convince stupid people where things are? And I said, wait a minute. It may not be their fault. Maybe it's your fault. You're putting things where they're not looking.
Tom,
Yes.
is there any company out there that could help us get a thermal image of our stores where there's high traffic areas?
This screen right there will show you. Take a picture of that if you've got a camera.
Uh-huh.
These are basically the high traffic areas. I think you can look at your store and say, okay, how does my store compare? Where's my coffee? Where's my salty snacks? Where's my cooler? Where's my cash register?
So
I mean, all stores are going to be different. I'm sorry.
is there a standard format for all the stores? Like,
No, there isn't, because everybody's store layout is different.
right. So going back to my question, is there any company that could get us a thermal imaging of our stores without us monitoring it where the high traffic areas, just in case if we have multiple stores?
That's a good thought. I don't know of any, but I bet there's got to be somebody out there. I'll do what my kids tell me all the time. Google it. I think if you Google it, you might find it.
Great.
Okay. Again, here's a store layout. But again, as we change our stores and move things around, add things to it, remember how it's affecting our traffic pattern. The space around the checkout at your store and the door is the most valuable spot in the store. And if that's the case, why do we always put newspapers by the front door? Newspapers are besides lottery, one of the slowest and the lowest gross profit item we have in our store. Put newspapers in the back. Save that valuable floor space for items that make a high gross profit. I apologize. There's a header across my screen that's blocking my top. Can you move that line? Okay. I just tried to. I tried that. Didn't work. What? Thank you. Okay. Why? We think majority of the customers don't go more than 20 feet from the front door. %70 of the customers will stay in the front of the store. They hardly even go to the back. So by having that newspaper rack, that's a low gross profit item, taking up floor space, you're not able to make a sale of high gross profit. If they come in thinking they want a newspaper, they'll find it. The counter is a good spot for impulse items. What do customers typically buy on impulse? Something like this. Would this be a good display? I'd say not. First of all, there's no price. And most of those items are going to run out in a shift's time, day's time. They may not get restocked. Would that look better? I think it would. Notice how the displays are full or semi-full. I can't tell you how many stores I walk into and I'll see a big lighter display and I'll see 2 lighters on the shelf. What's the price? It looks like somebody used a price gun to put a price on that label. Not very attractive. Does it look better? To me, people need to see what the price is in the store. You, your spouse, your kids, don't go to the grocery store, don't go to Walmart or Kohl's or any place else and buy something without knowing the price. If I don't see a price in the store, that tells me your price is high, you're embarrassed, and you don't think I'm going to find it. Typical counter looks nice, well merchandised, well displayed. I think everything is priced. Looks good. Here's a basket you might use at your store to get rid of merchandise, discontinued products that you might want to get rid of. Best way to do that is twofer. If you've got a candy bar that maybe wasn't selling and that you thought was a good item, put it in the basket, sell it two for something. Don't give it one at half price. Get rid of it, two for. Here's two aisles in the store. Which one? And this is a power aisle. Excuse me. Every store, whether it be a Walmart, a Macy's, a Kohl's, has a power aisle. They know it when they design the store, and you don't know it, but you walk down the power aisle in their store, and they have the best items for sale in that power aisle. Here's a power aisle. Here's another one. Now, I'm assuming these hats are in the wintertime. I hope this isn't July, but so let's assume that. But which one looks better? One or two? Actually, look to the left on this slide. What do you see? Health and beauty aid items. Are they impulse? Not typically. If I need an aspirin or I need a comb, I'm going to find it. I don't need it. It's not an impulse item.
And how do you balance, Tom, like if you go back to that slide or that picture, how do you balance the reason why some stores position it that close, even though it is in the power aisle, is more for security, just to keep visibility.
That is a factor sometimes. High shrink items, you need to be keeping within sight of the CSR. But typically, again, you look on the left over here, there are HBA or health and beauty aid items, not typically impulse, not typically an item that people will walk into. On the left, or candy, a better impulse item is what I'm saying. That's what looks better. Again, yeah, you got to keep shrink items within sight of the cashier. There's a strike zone. We call it the grab it zone. The strike zone is the area to the right as the customer walks in. Most people, when they walk into a store, will look or walk to their right.
That's true.
Remember that. They'll look or walk into their right.
If you notice, racetrack and quick trip set up, right? You walk in to the right, and that's how they designed their aisles.
They didn't do it by accident. They knew how you and I shop in our stores and our family. Front end caps. This should be the first section you stock and face. It's the first thing your customers will notice. It may even be able to see it from outside. It should be merchandised with items that are fast sellers and high gross profit percent. You can duplicate items on your end cap that you have in other places at the store. Think about what's on your end cap right now. Why did you put it there? Why did you choose that? Can you tell me the sales and the gross profit from last month? This is that typical end cap, and I'd say it's well merchandised. Here's another one. Is that good? Not to me. I don't think that's going to generate a good gross profit. Better? Yeah, there is a place to sell these items in your store, but maybe not the end cap. Front end cap should be merchandised with top sellers. Impulse items like AA and AAA batteries. It's a good place for packaged pastries. Maybe seasonally appropriate suntan lotion, sunglasses, gloves, winter appropriate. Should never be empty, a place for slow movers to get rid of, dusty, cluttered, or without clear prices. End cap, looks good, got a price on it. Use a planogram. Every grocery store has every item in that store on a planogram. They know exactly what should be where, and they start with eye level. I did some part-time work for a merchandising company, and they emphasize eyes to thighs. That's the prime location on the shelf. Coolers, we had a big problem with getting merchandise delivered and being out of stock. If you don't have a planogram in the back of your cooler where you're filling it, your staff will never know what goes in certain items. And what's the best thing? What's the first thing to run out of? Your most popular items. If you fill those slots with the wrong item, you'll never have a place for the correct item to go. So you should have a planogram, especially for the coolers and for most shelves in your store, so you don't forget what belongs on the store in the shelves. And color attracts people's attention. Went to a store one time. Actually, this was Amico when they first started in the company stores. And they had a sign along the back of the store, and it had cold drinks in red print and hot food in blue. Wait a minute, that's backwards. Cold drinks should be written in blue. That makes it feel cold, and hot food should be in red. So they had the right idea. They just didn't understand they had the wrong colors.
Wait, say it again.
They had the cold drink signage in red.
Okay.
Blue is cold. Blue is refreshing.
Yeah.
Okay. Why does Walmart merchandise AA batteries in about 25 different spots of the store? Because they know as you're walking through the store, you're going to see batteries and, oh, impulse, I need that. How many places should you merchandise stickers? 1 or maybe 2 or 3. Snickers is #1 candy bar in the world. Front counter, cooler, maybe the candy aisle. Now, I'm not sure coolers are a good place for Snicker bars in the wintertime, but they are in the summer. By the coffee counter, an end cap, shippers, displays in the store. Not just your candy aisle. There's sensitive items in our store. These are items that customers buy often, our competitors sell them. Can you be the market leader in any category? Possibly. Remember, people are willing to pay for convenience. It's got to be clean, got to be well merchandised. They're willing to pay a little extra for convenience. If you're not the market leader, try to be close of your competition. For example, people know milk costs a little more in our store than the grocery store. But in the grocery store, it's way in the back in the corner. Why do they do that? Because they want you to walk through the entire store to possibly pick up something else. Again, in our store, the milk is within 10 or 20 feet of the front door. Convenience is what they want. Pricing well on sensitive items sends a message to your customer that your pricing is fair. If you price the most recognizable item well, it has a positive effect on the overall store.
So Tom, we got a question from one of the members about printing. Any recommendation for printing price label, software or any company that would do that?
There's a variety of different companies that have labels and pricing. You mean for shelves?
Yes.
Most of your suppliers, whether it be E.B. Brown or McLean or any of the others, they should provide UPC stickers and pricing stickers for your merchandise. They should provide prices for your labels that you dictate. Don't let them tell you what the retail price is, because what they're going to do is price merchandise low so you sell more of it, so they sell you more of it. You want it to be priced at a price that you're comfortable with, not what they're comfortable with.
Sure.
And I understand in today's world, with the prices going crazy, you need to have a system where you're replacing stickers and pricing on your shelf. Again, customers want to know what the item's going to cost.
So going back to that question, not all of them, most of the products do come from E.B. Brown, Cormark, and these big box stores. But what about the one that comes from wholesale companies, which don't supply the price labels? or if they pick up from somewhere.
You're talking about pre-priced, like the Frito items?
No, products coming in from wholesale grocery stores that is not from E.B. Brown or Cormark.
Okay, then you need, again, there are different company. Again, Google it. I'm pretty sure you can find some companies out there that provide labels that you could price your merchandise and put on your shelf. I don't recommend stick-on labels, because stick-on labels, as you change prices, it becomes a mess. You need to put them on index little cards that are removable. And that's what the price channel is for on your shelves.
Okay.
All right. Let me give you I'll get to that in a minute. But blind items. Customers don't know what these items are. They may be a specialty. Nobody really knows the price. Blind or sensitive. Toilet paper. That's a blind item. People don't know the price when they go into a store to buy. Band-Aids, that's blind. Charcoal, that's blind. Gallon of milk, most people know what that price is. That's a sensitive item. Gatorade, that's sensitive. Pack of cigarettes, that's sensitive. How about gasoline? They drive by your store, your gasoline price is competitive. That puts a thought in somebody's mind when they drive in that your prices are fair. If they see your price on the street is 25 or 30 cents higher than competition, that's going to tell them that probably everything in the store is probably high priced. There's impulse items. Maybe it's a novelty promotion. Maybe it's a new item. Maybe it's a fad. I'll go back, I'll show my age, and maybe yo-yos back in the day, they were an impulse item, they were new. Why do we round prices to the nines? Maximizes profitability without jeopardizing the sale. Never price an item to slow it down. Oh, these candy bars are selling way too fast. I better raise the price so we won't sell so many. Wrong. The customer's looking at the $1.40. They're not seeing the 5 or the 3 or the 9. That's what they're really focused on. Good pricing strategy takes the customer's perception into consideration. Does the price make sense? I found this in a store, and if you look at those circled prices, you'll find there's about 3 different prices for Pringles, different flavors. Now, I know what happened. The last order came in, and they were a higher price, so they raised the price of that particular item. Wrong. If a new flavor comes in, you raise the price on all Pringles. Is it my imagination, or is your pricing confusing? Here's 7-Up. It shouldn't be that way. If the price comes in at a new price, you raise them all, raise them both. It's just like when candy goes up. You don't just raise your M&Ms or your Mars candy, you raise them all. It makes sense. What's inventory turnover? I think you might have heard this term before, but it's a way to measure how many times your inventory is sold or replaced over a period of time. Typically, it's a year. And the way you figure that is sales divided by inventory, or cost of goods sold by average inventory cost. Why do turns matter? Low turns is high inventory dollars. In other words, it's not turning over very fast. You've got a lot of merchandise on your shelves. Inventory that's paid for, sitting on your shelf, that reduces your working cash. So you're typically, you hear the term cash poor. That means you've got too much stuff on your shelf that's not selling. For example, your annual cost of goods sold is $10,000. Your average inventory that you take is about $10,000. That's telling you your inventory is turning over one time a year. If you've got $10,000 of annual goods sold and $5,000 of merchandise on your shelf, it's turning over twice. And that's got $5,000 extra sitting in your checkbook. If you've got $10,000 of annual cost of goods sold and $2,500 of merchandise on your shelf, it's turning over 4 times. This store has $2,500 sitting on the shelf, $7,500 in the checkbook. And I go back to my example with 425 different kinds of cigarettes. They had money sitting on the shelf in cigarettes, not in their checkbook. They were cash poor. I'm often asked this question. I bring up a good point. How many cigarettes should I carry in my store? And my answer is, I don't know, because I don't know what your sales are. Here's industry standards for products and their turnover. Candy should turn over 8 to 12 times a year, which is about once a month. Fuel, about 56 times a year, about once a week, fuel should turn over. Your groceries, 5 to 10 times, about once every 2 to 3 weeks. Pop and soda, 12 to 18. Automotive, 4 to 8. Fast food, little faster because you've got waste and expired products to think about. Beer, 12 to 24, about once to twice a month. Salty snacks, 12 to 18. HBA, health and beauty. Tobacco, 9 to 16, about once a month. Wine, liquor. Again, yours will be different. If you've got a camera, take a picture of this. And I will post on my website, on the T&S Management website, under training, online training. I'll print a copy of this workbook that you can download, PDF it. So it's all on there. But take a picture of that screen.
Tom, and I might have missed this, did you already go over how to calculate the inventory terms? Oh,
What was the number?
how do you calculate inventory terms?
Was sales over
Average sales divided by inventory. And that's how you remember the term, the number. When you have a chance to look at this presentation on the ARA website, you can go back and help yourself refresh. If your turns are faster than industry standards, you're missing out on sales opportunity because your shelves are empty. If your turns are slower than standards, you've got extra stuff sitting on your shelf. Money that could be in your checkbook. It's also stuff on your shelf that's maybe expiring or worse, getting dusty. Here's an inventory turnover worksheet that's on our website. And this just allows you to figure out each department in your store. And again, there is no turnover for the C store. It's all by category. It's all by department. For example, just think about this. Say candy was going up next week. Would you buy 2 years worth of candy for that little bit that you'd save and put in your store? I wouldn't. It's not a good use of your money. It's going to get old. It's going to get expired. It's going to get dirty and dusty. Some reasons for cash problems in a store: cash poor, inventory creep, not maximizing margins, out of control expenses, shrink and theft. 80% of your sales comes from 20% of your inventory. Take a picture of that screen. 80% of your sales comes from 20% of your inventory. Think about your cigarette order. Think about your Coke and Pepsi order. Most of the products are the most popular, the Coke 20 ounce, the Diet Coke, the Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, Marlboro Red, Marlboro Gold. That's most of your products. Inventory creep. You're adding items and categories to your store, but not adding to your sales. For example, you put in a fancy new ice cream machine, but your sales didn't go up. Typical store, typical convenience store. How many brands of toilet paper does this store need to carry? There's 3 that I can see right here. I was consulting with an owner one time when I walked into the store, and I'm looking around at merchandise and I see how dusty some of the things are. And I happen to notice sardines. And I said, okay, what are the sardines for? Oh, the fishermen like it, they use it for bait. Okay, I believe that. But you don't need 5 different flavors of sardines. The fish aren't that picky. Oh, they like it all. But I looked at it and there were a stack of price stickers that had kept changing over and over. So it's been sitting on the shelf. Okay, so you want sardines for your fishermen, maybe stock 1 brand, 1 flavor. Fish aren't that picky. Again, inventory creep. We are adding items, but our sales don't go up by much. How do you control inventory creep? Realize you can't be everything to everybody. It's an expensive proposition to stock everything the customer wants. That's Walmart's job. That's not ours. We sell convenience. Test new categories carefully before you jump in. Maybe order small quantities. Maybe, for example, your supplier likes to sell stuff by the case, which might be 24, and they might charge you extra to order 12 or 10. But maybe by doing that, you'll get an idea if that item's going to sell. And maybe, for example, clothespins. Maybe you decide that clothespins might be a good item in your store. Well, just go slow before you order a lot. Maintain a wish list. Don't stock a new item or a new brand of cigarettes until you've had a number of people request it. I used to, 10 times is what I looked for. Then I realized it was significant. I remember Red Bull when it first came out, and I was not a Red Bull customer. I'm not to this day. And I finally stocked Red Bull, and customers would come in and say, I thought you'd never put this stuff in store. I wasn't paying attention to what my customers were asking, but I remember the first time the Red Bull lady came in and I said, I don't need that, get out. I mean, I was wrong, okay, I'm sorry. Analyze your sales results. Anybody familiar with JCPenney's? Talk about promotions. How about Walmart, Macy's, Kohl's? About 12 years ago, JCPenney's came out and said, we're not going to have specials anymore. We're going to have everyday low prices. You remember what the result of that was? They almost went out of business. They probably are out of business, to be honest with you. They ran themselves out of business. That was a marketing strategy that somebody in the corporate world didn't have a clue about the real world. But I think there are promotions. We have to have promotions. We have to have specials in our store. The customer, and that could be Gatorade, that could be energy drinks, that could be fountain drinks. People looking for that value. And I also think that's an important part for our CSRs. If you've got Gatorade on sale and twofer, and a customer walks up with one bottle, you might just think about saying, hey, we got a deal on 2. Oh, okay, I didn't realize that. Have them pay for it then, and pick it up on your way out. I think that puts in the customer's mind that you're trying to be fair, you're having specials, something that they look for. Okay, grab your action plan. On the category management items, a couple of things we just talked about. Maybe review your end caps. Make sure your end caps are making you money. Another one could be, look at your turnover on cigarettes. Make sure your cigarettes are you're selling enough. You don't have too much. Your turnover is low. And don't forget to put a date down that you're going to start to do this. I didn't say you're going to finish, but you're going to begin to look at your end caps. Maybe tomorrow, maybe Monday. Again, if you put down, when I get a chance, we all know that's not going to happen. Okay? Let's move on to financial management. I can't see a show of hands, but I know there are several people in the audience in every class I've taught that use QuickBooks. QuickBooks is not a good system to track our sales in our business. There are several back office systems, and I know Modisoft is one. I think Mercury One is another that's out there that ARA has helped endorse. Yes, it costs a little more, but you're not spending your time in the office doing QuickBooks. My wife uses QuickBooks for my consulting business because all I've got is travel expenses and income. Very easy. But in the retail business, you can't. QuickBooks is not effective. You can use it, but it's going to cost you too much time in your back room. And the money's not made in the back room. The money's made out in the front room. Here's a survey that I think you should, when you get a copy of this online, I think you should look at this and take a survey. Do you get a monthly P&L? Does your report break down sales by department, sales, and gross profit? Or does it look like that example I told you about earlier, gas and other, and wages and other? That's not a financial statement. You take a monthly inventory. Does your accountant use your inventory to figure gross profit? Do your expenses listed out by department? And departments and expenses are wages, rent, interest, bank charges, utilities, professional services, things like that. And does your accountant advise you on your business? Does your accountant tell you, yes, you're doing this right, or no, you're not doing this right? Again, I talked earlier about shrink. In my business days, I spent money to reduce my shrink. And I believe to this day, I was making far and away more money than I was spending by reducing my shrink. By having an accountant in your business advising you what you should do, what you shouldn't do, is another tool in our business. I'm not an accountant. I'm not an insurance expert. I'm not a programmer. I know how to run a business. And I do that on the front end, not stuck in the office in the back. And is the value of your business going up? Is your net worth increasing? Does your accountant do anybody else in the industry? And I've met an awful lot of people that, oh, mom and dad have a farm and I use their accountant. That person doesn't understand our business. Our business is different than most. It's not even the same as a Walmart or a Home Depot or a Lowe's. How long has that accountant been in business? What kind of turnaround can you expect? Yes, they're going to charge you. Will they go with you to an IRS or other audit? And again, will they help you with sales, profit, and tax matters? If you can't check off yes to all those boxes, I think it's time for change. Excuse me. Inventory. A monthly inventory of all items is a must. Physical count. Why? Printing an inventory report from your scanner is not the same. The scanner tells you what should be in the store. The physical count tells you what is in your store. If you don't want to do inventory, and I understand that that's a time-consuming, boring job sometimes, there's people that provide service for you. They'll come out and count your store. And I think ARA probably has some ideas on people that will help count your store for inventory. 3 ways to figure gross profit. One's called the purchase method. Sales minus cost equals gross profit. Another one is the averaging or margining. Sales times the fixed gross profit equals gross profit. There's the inventory method. Beginning inventory plus purchases minus ending equals cost of goods sold. Which one is accurate? Which one is the most accurate? There's only one that even comes close, and that's number 3. You got to have inventory to start. You got to know your purchases. Have to know your ending inventory. The difference is cost of goods gone or sold. Notice I said gone or sold, because gone could be stolen, eaten, or sold. If your accountant uses your inventory, your physical inventory, to determine gross profit, this is how they do it. We have sales of $1,000, for example. We have a starting inventory, which was the end of last month, of $3,500. We bought $1,400 throughout the month. We have an ending inventory this month of $4,250. Cost of goods gone is $650. $650 from $1,000 is $350. That's a 35% gross profit. If your accountant doesn't get an inventory and they try to figure gross profit, this is how they do it. You have sales of $1,000. Your starting inventory, which was the end of last month, was estimated to be $6,000. They had purchases of $1,400. The end of the month, we estimated the inventory value at $6,750, and the cost of goods gone was estimated at $650. $650 from $1,000 is $350. We just made a 35% gross profit. Wrong. In order to make the 35% gross profit, the inventory value at the end of the month was inflated. I did a class in Denver several years ago, and a man had a store in Breckenridge. Been there like 5 years. He never took inventory in his store. He could have cigarettes on the books at $100,000. But if I went in and counted how much he had actually in the store, it could be 5 or 10,000. And he had no clue as to what his gross profit was on cigarettes. This is called averaging or margining. There's an accountant I've worked with a lot in Kansas City, and he's helped some people that I've had throughout the country. He will not do business with you as a customer if you don't take inventory. He says, if you don't take inventory, the numbers I'm putting together are phony. I'm not going to sign my name to a phony P&L. I'm not going to go with you to a tax audit if what I know is not true. So he'll tell you to go somewhere else. I kind of like that idea. I mean, that kind of refreshing. Again, if you're got an inflated gross profit like this man did at Breckenridge with cigarettes, his taxes are affected. We use the accrual method of accounting in our business. We pay taxes based on the gross profit shown. If you don't make the gross profit, you want to pay tax on it? Bad enough, your store is not making the gross profit you thought you were, but now you're paying taxes on the high number. Bad idea. Your cash flow is affected. And back when I was in business and I had a bank loan or a mortgage, my banker always asked for my financials. And I never knew why they wanted that. But then I finally learned, I finally got smart, that they were looking out for my best interest to make sure that I was managing my business properly. If you lose a banker's trust, you're out of business. Bankers, one of the people that you need, not all the time, but they're often to help manage your business. If you lose your banker's trust because he doesn't trust your financials, you're in trouble. Here's some industry-wide gross profit percentages. I also post this information on our website if you want it, or you can take a picture of it. These are nationwide industry benchmarks of gross profit by category. Now you're going to say, well, the beer price or the cigarette price is wrong. Well, maybe your gross profit in your part of town is very competitive, very tough. If you can justify that, I'm okay with that. But if you don't know what your gross profit should be, and you're on the low side of all of these, that's a red flag. That's a problem. Because you're making less money than you need to survive. Again, if your cigarette margin in your part of town is very competitive, I respect that, and that's great that you want to be competitive, but you should know that. Same way with expenses. Here's a industry guidelines for expenses. Benchmarks, we call them. And then you're going to have credit card fees and property rent or mortgage after that. As an industry, we compare expenses to gross profit. Allows you to accurately compare periods and sales and gross profit changes. As a retail industry, Walmart, Kohl's, Home Depot, they compare expenses to sales dollars. For some reason, way back when, our industry said, our sales dollars go up and down based on our gasoline price. Let's compare our expenses to gross profit. Gross profit's a little straighter line. If your accountant does not understand our business, they're not going to know that. Industry benchmarks. 85% of your in-store sales come from cigarettes, food service, packaged beverages, groceries, and beer. That came from NAC's State of the Industry a year or two ago, or maybe I think before COVID. Now, if you look at that and your store is not somewhere close to that, there might be a reason. 80% of your in-store gross profit comes from food service, packaged beverages, tobacco, groceries, and beer. And I think packaged beverages are water, soda, Gatorade, energy drinks, those kind of things. Typical C-store in our what I call mom and pop single store owner, 2,400 square feet. In-store shrinks about 1.43, about 475 transactions a day. In-store sales, about $8 each. That's probably a little bit higher since COVID came in. But that kind of gives you an idea of what our stores do. You know, I'm not talking the Raceways of the world or the Quick Trips of the world, but these are typically our stores.
So Tom, quick question over here.
Sure.
The payroll that you had mentioned was almost 35%. Is that the
Right.
industry standard they have, or is it from
For
the
example, if your store is got $10,000 in gross profit a month, about $3,500 should go to wages. Now, the way wages have been the last few years, that's probably a little bit higher than 35%. But also, if you as an owner are cashiering a significant part of the day, that should be lower. But if you don't cashier, I'm sorry.
35% on the gross profit, not on the sales.
On the gross profit, correct.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Here's an accounts payable recap. At the end of the month, I have to tell my accountant what I owe. Maybe a load of gas came in on the 29th of the month. I haven't paid for it yet. I got a load of cigarettes and my grocery items 2 days ago, and I haven't paid for it yet. I have to tell them what I owe. And the reason I do this is I like to see a consistent gross profit on my financials. If I see these kind of numbers, I know that the retailer is not providing the accountant their payables, money they owe. We put together a sample financial statement. We call it T&S Super Quickie Mart. And this is for a 7-month period. Here's a typical operating or income statement, as I like to call it. Notice the departments along the left side: fuel, automotive, tobacco, cigarettes. These are categories, these are departments. This is how I manage my business. I think you might want to add to that beer or liquor. Don't have too many departments. I've seen people have Frito department, Hostess department, Budweiser department. You can't do that. You can't manage that many departments. You don't want too many more than that. But I like this layout because it shows this month, then it shows 7 months year to date, and it shows last year this month, and last year to date. It gives me an opportunity to compare to see if my sales, my gross profit is going up or down based on the month or the year. If you're not doing this, if you're not reviewing this, if your accountant's not providing this, and you have a problem, you're not going to know it until the bank calls and says, there's not enough cash in your account to cover the check you wrote. Then it's too late. Those people could have seen this problem coming for months and years before by having some kind of issue that they weren't aware of. So we're comparing month to month. And again, don't have too many departments, and year to year. How can you spot a phony P&L? I have looked at some of these operating statements that people have shared with me at their store, and I can spot a phony right away. For example, the groceries are 35.0 for this month, 35.0 for the year, 35.0 last year, and 35.0 for the year to date last year. Now, what's the chances of that happening? None. If I were to show that to my banker, a P&L like that, he'd throw it back at me and say, Terrono, get out of here. I'm not loaning you any more money. So you say to yourself, well, I didn't know I was cash poor. I didn't know I was out of money. That's because the financials you were using didn't provide that documentation. Here's an expense statement. Again, we're comparing month and year to date, and last year, this month, and last year, year to date. Gives me an idea on my expenses. There's a balance sheet. I won't spend a lot of time on that, but basically the balance sheet is kind of the key indicator on how your business is doing. This is assets, and here's the assets are what you have, and liabilities or what you owe. And there's also a statement of cash flow that some people can use. I find it helpful. Many accountants are struggling with the record keeping of their customers. That's you. You're giving them bad information. When you decide to call a sales department or category, be consistent. For example, maybe your cigarettes, or you call it tobacco, or maybe you call it smokes. Whatever you have for sales, whatever you have for inventory receipts or end of month inventory, be consistent as to what you call it. When you buy it, when you sell it, when you count it. For example, if you have a sales department in your store called cigarettes and another category called departments, tobacco, if you ring up cigarettes as tobacco, you're going to get a bad profit margin. Your cigarette margin is going to be high, your tobacco is low. Which is right. If this goes on with different categories over a year's time, you don't know what you have. Just like, remember I said earlier at the end of the month, if you have gas you haven't paid for, be sure your accountant knows that. I've seen financial statements where the gasoline gross profit for the month is 40% this month and minus 60 next month, plus 70 next month. Which is right? I don't know. So always try to provide end of month accounts payable. Here, for example, if you get beer from your energy drinks from your beer supplier, make sure you separate it. I call it expensing my invoices. In other words, if I have a beer invoice or my grocery invoice, it may have milk on it, maybe cigarettes on it, maybe tobacco, maybe groceries. Somebody has to itemize that on my sheet so my accountant knows what that goes to. Again, we talked about the fuel. You've got to tell your accountant what you owe at the end of the month. And you have to have your inventory level. Stick your tanks on the last day of the month. If you've got credit cards on the last day of the month, but you haven't received credit for it, your accountant's got to know that. Here, if you're going to apply for a business loan, these are things you have to have for most bankers. A business plan, balance sheet, P&L statement, cash flow statement, maybe a loan repayment. How am I going to pay it back? And some other documents. You just can't walk into a bank and say, okay, here I am. I want $100,000 and I'll pay it back. I'm good for it. And I think they want to see professionally prepared financials. It might even pay you to have your accountant come into your banker and make the presentation. And be sure your accountant provides you with the reports you need to monitor your business. If you tell your accountant some of the things I've just talked about here and tell you that you don't need this, have them call me. I dare them to tell me to my face that I'm wrong. And I've had CPAs in my class over the years. Sometimes they've owned convenience stores. Sometimes they were there just to support their customers. And they have challenged me on some things, but basically I was right. Sometimes they have told me, like the cash flow and the balance sheet, they'll say, well, I provided that to my customers, but nobody looks at it. I understand that. I think you should always know your daily operating expense. I think you should know what it costs you to open your doors every day. Here's a sheet we have on our website. We call it a daily break-even analysis. And it's an Excel sheet. All you do is plug in the yellow boxes. For example, your fuel, your retail price, your cost, and the gallons sold. It will compute your fuel gross profit. Put in your inside store sales, and it's set for 30% gross profit, but you can change it if you want to make it 25 or 28 or 32. Put in your lottery, car wash if you have it. If you don't have car wash, leave it blank, and it'll compute for you your total gross profit. Now, somewhere you can find a 6-month gross expense statement. What were your expenses for the last 6 months? Divide that by 180. That's going to give you a good, fair number as to your daily operating expense. So under daily average expense in the yellow box, you'd plug in your daily operating expense for 6 months. And the bottom line would be it would show you your monthly profit. If it costs you $1,000 a day to open your doors, but you're only making $900 a day, how long does it take before you're out of business? And you can use this form on top with your gasoline. I call what if. Say you lower your gasoline retail price, but your cost remains the same. Theoretically, you'll increase your gallons. If you increase your gallons, you might bring more people in your store. Bring more people in the store, that's where the money's at. But download this form off the website and just, again, try a little play with it, little what if. Like I said, you need to know every day what it costs to open your doors. How does price change affect your gross profit percent? For example, item costs you $1, you're selling it for $1.59, you're making a 37.1 gross profit. But all of a sudden the price increases a dime and you're selling it for $1.69, your gross profit is 34.9. My cost went up a dime, I raised retail a dime. You should be selling that for $1.75 to maintain your 37.1 gross profit. And the cigarette people were real bad about this. You know, they'd raise the price $5 a carton and tell you to raise your retail $5. Each time you do that, you're making less gross profit percent. And you can do that on some items sometimes, but long term, you can't. Recompute your gross profit percent after price changes. Retail minus cost divided by retail gives you your gross profit percent. Take a picture of that screen. And yes, I know there are pre-priced products in our store. We can't get away from that. That's part of our problem, but hopefully we can make up our gross profit on some other items. And there might be a case that items are pre-priced and you can't justify it. Maybe you might think about not carrying it in your store. Now, I know when it comes to Frito, we're kind of stuck because we have to carry Frito, but why do we compare expenses to gross profit? I mentioned that earlier. If you were to compare expenses to sales and you had payroll of $10,000 store sales of 100, and we sold 100,000 gallons of gas at $4, at 2% gross profit, 2% would be payroll. 100,000 gallons at $3 is 2.5%. 100,000 gallons at $2, 100,000 gallons at $2 retail price is 3%. If you were to compare it to gross profit, our payroll's 10,000, our store sales are still 100,000, but our gasoline gross profit stays at 5%. 28.5% is our payroll cost. My point I'm trying to get at, if we compare expenses to gross profit, our number's a little more consistent. As you look up, as the price of gas fluctuates from $3 to $4, our payroll expense changes as well. With payroll expense, everything else is changing. Utilities, rent, taxes, maintenance, things like that. They're all changing. They're all getting jumbled up. It's kind of hard to understand it. That's why we like expenses to gross profit. Remember, you pay your bills with gross profit dollars, not sales dollars. Ways to cut operating costs sometimes. Sometimes we work hard, but we're not being smart. We used to talk about lean, mean, tight, and clean. Sometimes operating expenses get out of control. For example, there's a lot of concentrated cleaning supplies. In other words, you put this much liquid in the bottom and add the rest water, like Zep, for example. My people were never smart enough to mix it. They used to just use it straight. That cost me more money. It may have been cheaper in the long run, but my people weren't doing it right. Maybe trash removal, equipment rental, service contracts, even office supplies. Think about it as store merchandise. Focus on the individual items. Utilities. I used to track utilities. And when I had 5 stores, all of a sudden I kind of got mixed up and I wouldn't pay attention to an electric bill or a water bill at one particular store till I looked at my tracking and realized it was consistently higher than the others. Look into it. There's a reason. Especially with HVAC units and LED lighting, there's lots of ways to save money. Okay, grab the action plan one last time. And under financial management, maybe complete the accounting survey on page 42 and 43. It'll be posted on our website. Won't be today, it'll be tomorrow when I get home. I'll make sure it's posted. But if you can't answer yes to all those questions, it might be time for a new accountant or challenge the accountant you have now. Or maybe learn your daily break even. Learn what it costs to open your doors every day. Did I help solve some of the problems you had when you came in today? Maybe I raised some questions you didn't think you had before. I hope it was worth your time. And I'll leave you with my final thought. The road is never long between friends. If I can help you in the future, if you've got a question, I don't charge for phone calls or emails. Reach out to me. If I don't have the answer, I'll find it. I may not have the answer you like, but I'll have an answer for you. Reach out to me. My phone number, my website is on there. I try to answer emails within 24 hours, even when I travel. Questions?
Yes, Tom. So can we please go over the thermal image of the store again that you had shown earlier?
The heat map.
The heat map.
heat map that you had. With all the gondolas and with what are the high traffic areas? It was like almost like,
Yeah, I can go. You want me to try to find it again?
yes.
Okay. Give me just a minute.
There you go.
Perfect. Now, is there any particular setup that you recommend for the stores to get maximum attraction of particular products in the store?
Oh, I'm not sure I follow.
Do you have any like recommendation that would you recommend for?
Well, typically, again, front door to the customer counter is going to be a high traffic item. In the morning, your coffee, hot drinks would be a key indicator. During the day, possibly front door to the fountain, snacks, salty snacks would be some place people will be traveling. But I think every store is different. Take a picture of this.
Tom, and what's your take on, because we see this in some member stores, that they'll have like right in the most impulsive area by the sales counter, they'll have a really large display case filled with swords, or another display case filled with shirts, but right by the transaction area, you know,
Right.
the most impulsive area. What's your take on that?
A good friend of mine, not a friend, but acquaintance I know in Kansas City has a store, and in it he has a glass case by his cash register counter, and it's souvenirs, local souvenirs from town, from the Kansas City area. And I said to him, I said, "What's this?" "Oh, this is souvenirs. My wife takes care of this category." "You make good money up?" "Oh yeah, I make about 75-80% gross profit." "How much do you sell?" "Well, I don't sell that much." "Well, okay, wait a minute. You're making a high gross profit, but you don't sell much of it in a day's time. It doesn't belong here. It's taking up valuable floor space. Put that back in the corner somewhere where it's out of the traffic pattern." For example, you walk into the grocery store on a rainy day, most grocery stores have an umbrella, rain hat display when you walk in the door. That's in their power aisle. That's in their thinking in the grocery store. They want you to walk in and say, "Oh yeah, I want an umbrella." In our business, maybe when it just rained this morning, you might want a washer fluid display in the aisle when they walk in with a price on it. Not a sealed box, but I want bottles on top that people can grab. Because I was in my car this morning, I pressed the washer button and it went out, but I forgot. Till I walked in the store, in the aisle, oh yeah, I remember I needed washer fluid. Maybe in the summertime, a cooler with ice and bottled drinks or a indicator of impulse sales.
Okay. Now, also about, you said newspapers and magazine needs to go somewhere in the back, right?
Correct. Because they're low gross profit.
Right, right. So how do you address that? Because most of the customers are so used to finding it close to the register, right at the entrance.
Well, you know what, folks, we did some rearranging in our store. And we did some rearranging, trying to put the most popular items that you wanted, high selling item, close to the front. And newspapers just went to the back. You know, again, you're going to make some people upset. They don't understand it. But you're trying to make sure that you can maximize your profitability based on the footprint that you have.
Okay.
Kind of like I talk in meetings about employees getting a free coffee and free fountain drinks. And I always recommend employees pay something. 10 cents a cup of coffee, 25 cents for a fountain drink, something. because if you charge them something, they're not going to waste it. If fountain drinks or coffees are free, you walk around the store and you'll find partial cups all over the store. And then all of a sudden you'll go back to your store and start charging employees for drinks. And they'll say, well, how come you're doing that? Well, I went to a meeting the other day and I found out I was the only store that was giving away free coffee and free fountain drinks. And I'm just trying to cut down on waste. I'm not trying to get rich, but I'm going to charge you 10 cents a cup. I don't think that's out of line. I don't think that's bad.
Makes sense.
Any other questions?
That's about it from my side, unless Lewis and his team over there have any questions.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody. I can't see you, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much, Tom, and we would catch up again at 1.
Yes, we will.
Perfect.
We'll have managers and cashiers at 1 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Tom.
you again.
Thank you.